The rising of intelligence-driven supervision. Welcome to Orientation Executive Briefing. These Orientation Executive Briefings explore the regulatory and governance signals shaping risk, accountability, and decision-making in modern institutions. A subtle shift is emerging in the regulatory terrain surrounding UK financial services as it is across the globe. Supervision is becoming increasingly intelligence-driven. Across recent regulatory communications and leadership commentary, there is this growing emphasis on targeted oversight supported by deeper use of data, thematic reviews, and focused supervisory attention. At the same time, expectations placed on institutions continue to broaden, not shrink, particularly in areas such as artificial intelligence governance, operational resilience, third-party dependency risk, cyber exposure, and complex technology ecosystems. Taken together, these signals suggest a meaningful evolution in supervisory posture. From an orientation perspective, the important question is not simply what regulators are asking for. The deeper question now is how institutions should interpret this shift in terrain. When supervision becomes more intelligence-driven, regulatory attention becomes more selective. Supervisors increasingly focus on areas where data, incident patterns, or thematic reviews suggest structural risk may be emerging, for instance. That means scrutiny is less about broad coverage and more about concentrated attention where vulnerabilities appear most likely. And for institutions, the implication is subtle but important. Regulatory exposure, therefore, is no longer defined only by whether controls exist, for instance. Increasingly, it is defined by whether governance architecture reflects the complexity of the environment institutions now operate within. So in areas such as artificial intelligence governance, operational resilience, and complex digital ecosystem, regulators are paying close attention to questions of accountability. Who ultimately owns automated decision systems, for instance? Does escalation pathways function when risk move across technology, operations, and third-party environment, for instance? And does the board have visibility that genuinely reflects the institution's operational risk profile? These are structural questions and many more of such. And structural gaps rarely appear suddenly. They come on gradually. More often, they emerge when capability expands faster than governance evolves. So, technologies advance, operational complexity increases, and governance architecture sometimes adapts more slowly. When supervisory attention eventually focuses on those areas, the gaps become visible. You realize that from an orientation perspective, the terrain signals is clear. Supervision is becoming more intelligence-driven, and regulatory focus is increasingly directed toward where structural risk may concentrate. For executive teams, the relevant question is not simply whether systems and controls exist. It is whether governance structure genuinely reflects the terrain the organization now operates within. Because in periods of technological and regulatory acceleration, institutions rarely encounter difficulty because they've innovated. They encounter difficulty when governance architecture fails to evolve alongside innovation. And in those moments, the issue is not capability, It is indeed, as it should be, orientation, understanding the terrain before deciding how to move within it. This is food for thought. Thank you.